Hi everyone, welcome to the Idaho Authors Showcase. My name is Janet Ravenscraft and I will be your host today. This show will be about authors and their stories. We'll find out about why they write and why this book. And then how they write. Do they use a computer, a laptop? Are they longhand? Are they recording? When they write. Are they writing daily? Do they set a time? Maybe it's the middle of the night. And what they write. Is it fiction or nonfiction? Do they like romance or sci-fi? Motivational or is it scary? Thank you all for joining us today. Now get a cup of something, sit back, relax, and enjoy the show. Hi everyone, welcome to the Idaho Authors Showcase. I'm your host Janet Ravenscraft, and my guest author today is Danney Clark. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Janet.
Thank you. I'm happy to have you here. So his latest book, Danney's been very busy writing books. How many books do you have total?
I have 9.
9 books. And your latest one is Keys to Your Heart. So what brought Keys to Your Heart on? We'll start with that one.
The title?
The title and why you wrote this book and what's it about?
Well, a lot of what I write is what I feel.
Okay.
And so therefore when I begin a story, I never know if it's a short story or a novel.
Oh.
Because my inspiration comes from God, and therefore when he's done with the story, he lets me know to put the end.
The end, and you just know
And so
it.
this book happened to be a collection of short stories.
Okay, so how many stories are in here?
There's about 20.
20 stories, and they're each story
A
different story you
they
wrote?
vary in length between probably 10 and 15 pages.
Okay.
Actually, I was asked to write this book by one of my current fans, if I have a fan base. But she was reading one of my other short story books, Spoonfuls from Heaven, to her children at night for bedtime.
Oh.
And she asked me if I'd write one that was geared to upper elementary through adult. And so that's what this story is. It's these stories would be fitting to read to your children, give to your grandparents, read for yourself.
Or they could read them themselves. It'd be a book that
Currently.
Yeah, that would. It sounds like it would meet all kinds of gender, or what do I want to say? All kinds of ages, group.
Yes, it fit. The stories are as different as the people that's in them.
Okay.
No two stories are the same. I even added a couple of science fiction kind of things to
Mix
it
them up.
because of the children aspect. So the aim 2 stories, they're the Black Condor and the Return of the Black Condor, are stories about a fictional character, and they were pretty much added for the younger set of children and
fantasy, a little
adults that like fantasy and stuff like that.
So what do you like to write? Because of your 9 books, what are some of your other, fiction, all of them fiction, nonfiction?
Everything I write is fiction.
Okay.
I like to call it Christian fiction, and people have asked me, what does that mean? Because different people have
different
interpretations. Different ideas of what being a Christian is. And I tell them, I says, it's come to be a everyday story with a message, some kind of a moral thing built into it.
Okay.
That's the only similarity between any of my stories, is that somewhere in the plot, the characters find a choice between right and wrong.
Okay.
And sometimes they choose right,
and
sometimes they choose wrong.
Which is real life.
Real life, you bet. All of us have done that.
Right.
And so I write stories about real people that make real mistakes, and then learn from those mistakes and make better choices in life.
Well, that's great. So, what are you working on right now then? And so those ideas come from everyday life. Well,
they come from heaven. But I'm working on another short story book. I'm about, by word count,
what about word count?
About 2/3 of the way through.
So So word count. Let me just stop you for a second. So word count. Do you do so many per day? You have a word count?
I don't have a goal.
Okay.
I'll go many days and I won't write a word, and then I'll go a few days and I'll write constantly.
Constantly. Okay.
Word count to most people is that the book has a perceived value based on how thick it is.
How thick it is. Okay. And yours are all. Yeah, they're all.
Unfortunately, the value of something isn't how big it is. You know, you have a lump of coal and versus a diamond, you know.
Yeah.
But the perception that people have of value is it really worth what I'm paying for it? Mm. And so the general idea of a book novel would be something between 70 and 100,000 words.
Okay.
I'm at about 60,000 right now on this.
So that's why you think you're saying you're about 2/3.
That's how I gauge what I'm at.
So you go towards the 100,000 then.
Well, if I get up toward about 100,000, and usually I just kind of run out of gas, ideas stop coming for a little bit, and then the hard work starts.
The editing.
The hard work is after the writing is done. The writing is just simple and enjoyable and fun. The editing and book design and
book covers,
formatting and getting it ordered and delivered and then marketed, that's the harder part.
Okay. So in that vein, would you are you self-published? Do you have a publisher that you use?
I'm self-published.
You're self-published. And so do you do your own editing? Are you?
No.
Okay. I was going to say, most people say editing, don't do your own editing, because we miss our own stuff. We are used to saying, looking at something and we're not seeing it. So
you read over your mistakes the same way you made them in the first place.
It's true.
Your mind fills in the blanks of the word you left out. It's just the oddest thing ever.
Well, and I know I write like I think, and so I leave words out. Especially especially as I get going. So I realize that myself going back. Okay, I need to add in the to's and the does and the I's and those that I don't write.
By the time I send the manuscript to my editor, I probably have edited it myself about 3 or 4 times.
Yeah.
And almost always as I reread it, I pick up mistakes or errors or omissions.
So like the second time, I just did that on my second printing of my book. I went through it and it was like, oh my word, how can I had an editor and a proofreader and myself, and I said, how can all 3 of us miss this? These, and it's like, but I've had several authors say that's just the way.
Our mind thinks, but our brain doesn't necessarily work the same way. It works well if you have several people. And then when you're done, if you get down around 5% error, to a reader, that's a lot of errors.
Isn't that interesting? But when you have, how many words? 100,000 words, and you have...
5%.
That's pretty good.
That's a lot of words.
That's 95%. That's like an A,
But what'll happen is that once a person is in tune with the errors, their eye goes right to the mistakes.
Yeah, it does.
And they start picking them right out.
And I can, when I read somebody else's, I can catch them as the wrong word, or there's something spilling, or there's something missing. It's like, oh, yeah.
I do as well. That's why you don't do your own. That's why you pay somebody extra to do, and then you hope that they do a good job, and often, and that's why you have second and third editions, because some of your readers will point out that.
And I had a couple of them going, do you know that this? And I go, you know what? I go, but just tell me. I go, send me I appreciate that, because the next time, I'll. And then I think you just get to a point and you just say, okay, thank you. And I just say thank you.
Yeah. At some point, it's good enough.
Yeah. So on your, when you write, are you longhand? Use a computer? What's your computer? So everything is that. Well. Have you tried longhand or?
I can write longhand. I started writing longhand in high school, but obviously, to be able to cut and paste a whole sentence, to be able to move things around, to be able to read your own writing.
That's mine. That's totally mine.
Yeah, I can't imagine how difficult it would have been to be a writer 100 years ago.
Oh,
and then
how many? And paper was even.
Well, expect your editor to read your handwriting and correct your mistakes. That would have been a challenge.
Yeah, I agree. So on book covers, where do you get? Do you select all your book covers? Do you get them off of like Fiverr, or how do you?
No, I've done them all locally. My editor is pretty talented, and he, together with me, we collaborate.
Okay, so depending on whatever your title is, then you try to...
Well, somewhat, yes. A lot of times the title will speak to what the cover should look like, and sometimes the cover will give you an idea of what to name the book.
The book, there you
go. This particular one here,
I
had in mind that the things that we value and tuck away in our heart, those little special moments or those thoughts or
memories,
we open our heart with a key, and the key is often a thought or a memory of something. These are just little short stories that might open the heart of the reader and touch them emotionally.
I like that, and I like the title on that one. Okay, hold on to that. We're going to take a break. We'll be right back.
Action.
Welcome back, and I'm here with my guest author, Danney Clark, and we're just having some discussions about books and writing, and been very interesting. So let's go on off on a different one. So reviews. How do you feel about reviews? Do you like them? Do they, you take them to heart?
Well, I'm passionate about them because I understand, as being a lifelong salesman, that word of mouth is your very best advertising.
That's true.
And unfortunately, an author will die on the vine unless people talk about it.
True.
I'm so willing to have people criticize me or applaud me or even speak about me that I couldn't say enough good about a review.
So how do you get your readers to write reviews? Do you ask them? Do you I know that's a hard place to be. I mean, I've been there before. I've done that myself, going, "Oh, I really liked your book," and I go, "Well, if you really like it, would you go on?" And just put a review out there.
Well, the truth of the thing is that less than 1 in 10 will write a review.
True.
It's probably worse than that. It's probably 1 in 50.
Unless they know you and they love you and they know it,
Well, but then it's tainted. It's not a true review, because if they can't say they love it, they don't say anything at all. So if you ask a friend or relative to write you a review, they won't give you an honest review.
Because they don't want to hurt your feelings.
They don't want to hurt your feelings.
Or make you mad or whatever.
About the only people that will really do it and do it honestly is another author.
Because they know.
Because they know the importance of the review, that they know that they can afford to be honest with you, because you're learning as they're learning. And so many times I've made friends online on my Facebook with authors that I'll never meet.
I was going to say, but if you give them a review and they've read you, then they reciprocate?
Absolutely.
Okay.
However,
and that's how you reciprocate yourself.
You've got to be fair about the honesty of it. If you're only doing it or asking for it so that you can get a freebie, and you got to do them a freebie, then you're a politician. You're
hey.
If you're expecting a favor because you gave them a favor. But most of the people that have reviewed for me have done, I think, a fair job. Some of them have been critical. I don't have a problem with that because I'm far from perfect. And I'm more than happy. I've done lots of reviews for authors that never reciprocated.
And so another way, how do you use in advertising? Because that's kind of in that same vein. You need to get reviews out there. But how are you using social media? How is that working for you? Because we have a whole generation that's the only way they communicate is through social media. How are you touching in, or how are you reaching out to them?
I have a Facebook presence and I have a web page.
Okay.
My wife would say I'm probably on Facebook too much.
I think everybody says that. It's hard not to. It sucks you in.
I think what happens is you get sucked into the conversation, and before you know it, it's been 2 hours.
I've been there myself. It is amazing because I never thought I would be. But as you're trying to manage it, as you're trying to stay connected, as you're trying to comment on other people's so that they'll comment on yours, and things are interesting. And for me, it's even a connection with my family and those that live, my family that lives far away, that this is the only way I get to see my nieces and nephews are by social media. So
I've been fortunate to have a personality that's outgoing enough and outspoken enough that people expect me to respond. And so it isn't a secret to anybody that I'm passionate about things, and I'm more than willing to offer opinions, and I'm more than willing to listen to opinions. So again, my wife might criticize me by saying that I get too involved in politics of life, or in religion, or those things that I am passionate about. But if you don't stand for something, some smart man said that, if you don't stand for something, you stand for nothing. And so the point is that let people know where you stand, and then adapt to where you're going with it. In other words, don't be afraid to make your opinion known, but also don't be afraid that they're going to disagree with you.
There are going to be, and it seems with social media that people are a lot less restricted in their comments, restricted in their feelings and sharing. I've seen some wild debates on social media that 5 years ago people would have been too kind, too politically correct. Not anymore. Some things I'm amazed that come out on social media.
I am too.
People forget.
People are uninhibited because they know that they aren't real people to others. In other words, you can make a comment and you don't have to stand up and prove it. You don't have to risk getting punched in the face. You're going to make your comment and you're going
to go away, move on to the next one, and never hear what anybody else says, or if anybody likes it or not. What's interesting for me too with social media is that a lot of people advertise and invite people to things. And so going to an event, and how many people respond that they're going, and you go to the event and said, 100 people are going to be there, and you get there and there's like 20, 25, because...
Or 5.
Yeah, or 5, because it's not real. To some people, it's not real. I'll say I'm going, and if I don't go, they won't know. They won't miss me. It doesn't matter. But I think we're missing in that portion.
I agree.
So on your, I know you have a spiritual contact. So where do you see that as far as you're sharing that? There's a spiritual connection with you, so you're sharing that. But then you're also your audience. What are you trying to give to your audience? Or your readers?
Well, if I've done my job right, you will see as a reader the message that is in it, and it'll affect you somehow. Mm-hmm. if I've described the circumstance well so that you can picture it in your mind, if it speaks to you as a human being that we're all flawed and make mistakes, and yet we go on and hopefully improve.
And people need to hear that.
Then I've done my job.
And that's your ideal reader, are those readers, because they're the ones that want to hear that message.
The very best client that I would have would be somebody who's non-religious but open-minded. Okay?
Okay.
Let God speak to them. Let the book speak to them. And let it be what it is. So somebody doesn't have to believe as I believe to find value in my writing.
And that's it. Your educator book was a little bit different, though. The one, and so what was the idea behind that? Because I'm reading that one, and so I was interested to see where that came from.
Well, first off, I believe that I have a deep respect for those people who are selfless.
Oh.
Okay? And I envision firemen, police officers, teachers being less selfish and more selfless and more willing to give to society than most other occupations.
I agree because they pick, and it takes a certain type of person to be able to do those kind of occupations.
To invest yourself in a job that you know you'll never be rich and famous is a calling.
Yeah.
Okay, regardless of what kind of job that is. And so I chose a teacher, and as I write these stories, I put myself in the shoes of the principal character.
Okay.
And hopefully my reader does as well. They see themselves as that person. So this character is about 40-ish. She's been teaching since she got right out of college. She's never been married, but she's not an ugly old spinster. Her fiance was killed in the war, and so she hasn't felt called to go dating, and so she's invested her time and efforts into education. She finds herself moving away from her students because as she ages, the generations change, and she finds herself becoming less and less effective as an educator because their interests are different than hers were. And without giving the storyline away, she notices that there's 6 students in particular that are of genius IQ. They're just floating through the class on their brains and not reading or even caring about the reason for American history.
I like that thing. I have a daughter that's a teacher, and I'm always offended when people say, yeah, if you can't do anything else, teach if you can. And that really offends me because they do take care of our kids. We're going to need to stop and take a break. We'll be back. All right, welcome back. And we're just going to continue on here for a minute or so to talk about education and teachers and those selfless occupations out there that people don't get appreciated for. And so, how do you feel about that?
Well, I feel that they're underappreciated, and the more that we can showcase those occupations and the more that we can show our appreciation for them, the better off society in general is.
I think so too. And like I said, I'm enjoying reading the educators because it's that whole realm on that. And then you made a good comment about it's also like housewives.
Well, if you've never been a housewife, then you shouldn't knock it.
Exactly. It's a hard job.
There isn't probably an occupation that's tougher than a housewife has. Or a house husband, I guess.
Exactly, a house person.
Yeah, whoever takes care of the family and keeps the budget and makes sure there's food and takes care of the children and answers questions and nurses you back to health when you're sick, that person is selfless. And we should give them more credit than the CEO that works
that has a whole group of people that take care of them and do all that stuff for them. Yeah, moms and dads that stay home moms and dads don't have that.
They don't have the education. Most of them are first-time parents, and they're learning on the job as they go.
And each child is different. You can read all the books you want, but you have to learn that on your own. So I agree with you too. So I wanted to follow up on that one. So Danney, we're going to end up here. I want you to share with your audience and your readers and my audience, or our audience, that what would be the thing that you would suggest to a new author out there, or a new writer, or somebody that's written but hasn't published? What have the benefit for publishing been for you?
Well, it gives you a way to express your feelings, whether you publish or not, whether you're ever rich and famous or not. It gives you a media to put it out there and put it down on paper so that you recognize your weaknesses and your strengths. I would tell anybody that if they have the desire to write, do it.
Do it.
I'd encourage them to try it. I'd be happy to help anyone get started. It's underappreciated probably. There are many people that probably could write and won't. And there are a few people that do write and shouldn't.
But that doesn't mean it's not a bad thing. It doesn't mean a bad thing, because even if it's somebody else might consider it bad writing, but if you just stop and do it, I think that's the important part. Is stop and do it.
There's somebody that's going through what you're going through in life
that could benefit.
That will relate to what you're, whether it's really good or not.
Yeah, and if you're writing from your heart, it's never a bad thing.
Correct.
Well, I want to thank everybody for joining us today. I hope you've enjoyed a conversation with Danney Clark, and I appreciate you coming in. So thank you all, and have a great day.